Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever wondered how an app that was designed in, say, California, can feel so completely natural to use in Tokyo? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden blueprint for taking products global. And, as you're about to see, it's so much more than just swapping one language for another.
So let's just start with a super common idea. You've built an amazing app or a killer website, and you're ready to launch it in Japan or Germany or Brazil. All you need to do is translate the words on the screen, right? Just send a file to a translator, get it back, and you're good to go. Well, if only it were that simple. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. What most people think is just a simple language task is actually a really deep, integrated business and technology process. In the industry, they call it the GILT framework. That stands for globalization, internationalization, localization, and then finally, translation. You see, this whole framework shows that translation isn't where you start, it's the very last piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
And here's that blueprint laid out. Globalization, that's the why, the big picture business strategy. Internationalization is the how. It's all the clever engineering that happens up front to build the product with like universal plugs and sockets so it can be adapted later. Then you've got localization, which is actually plugging in the right adapters for a specific market. Things like date formats, cultural norms. And only then, at the very end, do we get to translation, the part with the words.
This brings us to a really crucial idea. We're not just localizing for a language. We're localizing for a locale. And a locale is way more specific. It's the language plus the geography, plus all its unique conventions. Just think about English in the US versus English in Canada. It's the same language, but you've got different date formats, different currencies, different spellings. That's the difference between ENUS and ENCA. They're two totally distinct locales.
Okay, so let's see how this all works in the real world. We'll start in our first arena, software localization. We're not just talking about websites here. This is about the actual code that makes an app run, and that brings a whole unique set of challenges to the table. And we are talking about so much more than just the text you can see. The whole localization process has to cover everything. Menus, dialog boxes, the online help files. It even gets down to adapting things like date formats and currency, and even changing the keyboard shortcuts, the hotkeys, so they make sense in the new language. This quote from Peter Sandrini, man, it just perfectly nails the core technical problem. How in the world do you let a translator change the text without them accidentally deleting a critical piece of code and, breaking the entire application? Well, the solution is actually pretty genius. Smart programmers figured out how to separate all the text that a user sees, every single menu item, button, and error message, into these special resource files. This move brilliantly isolates all the translatable stuff from the core code. It basically creates a safe little sandbox for translators to work in, so there's no risk of them messing up the software's engine.
And this allows for a really organized workflow using specialized software. The tool sucks out all the text, the translator works on that clean list, and then the tool helps put it all back together. But a super critical step is resizing the user interface. I mean, a button label in English might be short, but the German translation could be twice as long. So dialog boxes and menus all have to be adjusted before the final localized version of the software gets built.
Now, let's switch gears and move to our second arena, website localization. And if software localization is like making a movie, then website localization is like running a 24/7 cable news channel. It's a living, constantly changing thing. And that creates some really big differences. Software gets updated in big chunks, version by version. Websites, they get updated constantly, sometimes every single day. Software localization is super technical, but for websites, you need translators who get everything from marketing copy to dense legal disclaimers. It means the relationship you have with a localizer changes from a one-time project to a true, ongoing partnership. And that's because a website is really this complex ecosystem of digital assets. Yeah, you've got your normal text and images, but you also have videos, downloadable PDFs, shopping carts, and even live community content from forums. A global strategy has to figure out which of these things actually need to be localized for each and every market.
This basically forces companies to pick a strategy, and there are three main ways to go. You've got the monarchist approach, where one central team at HQ dictates everything. Then there's the anarchist approach, where every country just does its own thing, which you can imagine usually ends in brand chaos. The model that works best is the federalist compromise, a smart blend of global brand consistency with that crucial regional and local flavor.
So you might be thinking, managing all this complexity across both software and websites, it seems impossible.
How do professionals actually pull this off? Well, they rely on a powerful and very specialized toolkit.
You know, one of the foundational pieces of tech here is something we totally take for granted today: character encoding. We went from ASCII, which could pretty much only handle English, to this whole patchwork of different standards for different language groups, and finally to the modern miracle that is Unicode. Unicode gives a unique code to literally every character in every language. It's the magic that lets a single web page show English, Japanese, and Arabic all side by side, perfectly.
The Pro Toolkit is really split into a few key areas. A huge slice is for translation memory tools. We'll get to those in a second. But you also have these highly specialized tools for software that know how to handle compiled code, plus advanced editors for web content, and these huge, powerful management systems to keep everything organized.
But maybe the absolute cornerstone of the entire toolkit is something called translation memory, or TM. A TM system is basically a smart database that remembers every single sentence that's ever been translated. So when a new software version or an updated web page comes along, the system automatically finds and reuses any translations that already exist. It saves a massive amount of time and money, and, maybe most importantly, it makes sure the brand's voice stays totally consistent everywhere.
Okay, so you've got the best process and the most advanced tools. The job's done, right? Nope. Not even close. The product now has to go through the final, and honestly, the most critical checkpoint: rigorous testing.
A really solid quality assurance plan for any localized product is going to rest on 3 distinct pillars.
And this goes way, way beyond just checking for typos. First is the linguistic test. Are the words correct? And hey, do they actually fit on the buttons? Second is the user interface test. Does the layout still look good, and are the images culturally okay for this market? And finally, the big one, the functional test. Does the app still work perfectly? Did we introduce any new bugs with all our changes?
So, if you take one thing away from all of this, it should be this. The ultimate goal, the true sign of a perfectly done localization project, is that it's completely invisible. The product should feel so natural, so right, that a user in Seoul or São Paulo never for a second even considers that it was originally designed halfway across the world for someone else.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future. You know, as our technology gets better and better at personalizing experiences and AI gets smarter, are we still going to need to target these broad categories like French-Canadian? Or will the very idea of a static locale start to dissolve into a world of hyper-personalized, individual experiences? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.